Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Heart Breathings. Today, I've got my tea in front of me, and we're going to have a little bit more of a coffee chat style discussion because as we approach the new year, I know a lot of us have goals on our mind. We're thinking about who do I want to be in the world? What do I want to accomplish next year? Hopefully, also, we're taking a little bit of time to reflect on this past year or maybe the past few years. And some of us are hitting this moment where we're saying, man, I'm so proud of myself for all that I've accomplished. And some of us are hitting the end of this year thinking, oh my gosh, how did that go so spectacularly wrong? How did I not get anything done that I thought I was going to accomplish? How could I have let myself down that much? How could I have experienced this difficult thing? We're all coming to this moment with different feelings about this year and thinking forward about the new year with intention can be really, really powerful. And it can be painful to look back. It can be exciting to look back. But when we start looking forward, that is where we can have an opportunity to really design the life that we want to live. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how I did that for myself and how I'm going to do that moving forward. Sometimes I kind of forget that there's always new people here on this channel, and there's probably somebody watching this right now that has never seen my videos before. And often I'm just kind of talking to my regular subscribers. But to anybody who is new here or hasn't heard this story before, I hope that you can find something in it that resonates with you. And for those of you that have heard this story before, maybe it will be a reminder that you are never stuck where you are and that you can always change your life, be that in a radical way or in subtle, small ways every single day or every single year. But I am going to tell a little bit of my story. So this might not be the best episode of Heart Breathings for younger children to be listening in on. And if you are triggered by discussions of sexual assault or depression and suicidal ideations, then you might want to just skip this one. But I promise by the end of it, you will feel uplifted. We're not going to stay in a low place for very long because I am talking about how I pulled myself out of that and how I created a life that is really and truly beyond what I ever dreamed of before, and how I'm going to use those same processes to hopefully even go beyond this. So if you are new here, my name is Sarah. I am an author of 30 books, and I'm also, YouTuber, course creator. And as we get ready to start Your Path Forward, which is my long-term planning course tomorrow, and then HB90 on Sunday to start planning Q1, I have been doing a lot of reflection. I also am turning 48 in January, and that has also made me start to realize that 50 is only a couple years on the path. And who do I want to be by 50? Who do I want to be in my 50s? And really thinking intentionally about how do I actually design the life I want to lead. Now, there are always going to be things that are outside of our control. There's always going to be things that happen, illnesses, just roadblocks along the way, things we didn't see coming. We lose jobs, we lose people, we move. Things just don't always turn out the way we thought. And that still can be something that holds us back, and we can't always control when those things are coming. But there are a lot of ways that we have more power than we realize to actually decide what we want our lives to be, who we want to be, and what kind of feelings we want to have on a daily basis, how we want to show up in the world. We have a lot more power of those kind of things than we sometimes realize we do. So many of you may not know that back when I was in high school, I wanted to be a writer, but I also really wanted to be a singer. I went to school at Vanderbilt in Nashville to study both vocal performance and to study English. So I was studying both things. And at the time, my actual true love was theater. I wanted to be a Broadway singer. My dream, when I used to just write in my journal all the time about who I wanted to be, was to be a Broadway star. I wanted to live in New York City. My dream was after college, move to New York, get an apartment, become a singer in the city and like work on Broadway, dance and sing. That was my big dream. And I did a lot of theater in high school. But a lot of voice teachers told me, no, your voice is so much more suited for opera. You're wasting it on theater, which is just ridiculous when I look back now. And I was working with a lot of people, frankly, who were just kind of snobby about like this kind of singing is better than this kind of singing. And because I didn't really have a lot of self-esteem back then, because I grew up with a narcissistic mother who was just always criticizing me, I didn't know any better. When someone told me this is what you should be doing, I listened. I was like, okay, you say I should be over over here, that's what I'm going to do. But every time I moved further into that realm of opera singing, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it at all. I really came to love opera as well, but it wasn't really where my heart was anyway. And this becomes important later. But I had already kind of betrayed my own dream by going after the dream other people wanted for me rather than just listening to my heart at that point. But I was like 18. So, I was doing the best I could. And so I studied opera and art song in college. And then I decided that I don't know what I want to do with my life after that. So I graduated and, naively thinking that my boyfriend at the time might propose to me, I kind of put off graduate school. I was also really scared. There's a lot of things kind of going in that vein there. So I taught elementary school music for a year. And then I decided, no, I don't want to do this. And so I traveled in Europe. And this was probably one of the most pivotal times in my life. It was the year 2000. I was traveling in Europe alone, and it was the most free I had ever been. I was going to operas, I was going to theater, I was traveling, meeting new people, I was going to lots of different art museums and just kind of soaking in Europe. It's like even just walking around the European cities and seeing these buildings that were so much older than what we have here in the United States was so inspirational. And I was having the time of my life. And I had saved Italy for last because I was like, okay, I want to spend an entire month in Italy just soaking in Rome and, seeing the operas and the just all the history of opera there in Rome and in Italy. And so my first night was spent in Venice, and I was stopping off at a cafe in near the Rialto Bridge called New York Rialto, because back then we didn't have smartphones. It was 2000. I had to pay for like internet email cafes, like time at a cafe to check in with my email, to check in with my parents or my friends or whoever back home. And so I thought, oh, New York Rialto, that'll be a cool kind of cafe to go in and check my email because they're probably American, right? So I go in, and there, the owner of the place introduced me to two American men who were in the Air Force, who were around my age, a little bit older. And they were like, we'll show you around the city. And, makes my heart beat just like a little bit faster here just to think about that, because I was truly on a high, and I was thinking, in a month when I get home, I'm going to start applying for these amazing graduate schools. I had gotten into San Francisco Conservatory. I had a friend who was at IU, some of these big schools, and I thought, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to really go for it. And I was feeling more alive than I had in a long time. And in fact, I had just spent a week in Budapest, which for me was my favorite city in all of Europe. I could have just spent my whole life in Budapest. And I had been rented a bike, and I was going out, like seeing all the cemeteries and the art and, just different parts of the city. And I had written, I was in Hero Square, and I had written a journal entry talking about how I feel like I'm the happiest and most free I've ever been in my life. I was truly feel like I was finding myself for the first time. And that is important because of the thing that happens next is I went to Venice, met these two guys. We spent the whole day together. We went out to dinner with a group of friends. And then, I won't go into the gruesome details, but that night I was sexually assaulted. And, you know, waking up the next morning, my whole life was different and forever changed, like truly forever changed. And I had a concussion. I was battered and bruised. Everything was torn and hurting. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. And over the course of really the next couple of years of my life, I really didn't have a lot of support system. I feel like my parents just were like, let's pretend this didn't happen. The military, like Italy didn't want anything to do with it because it was not, Italian citizens. The Air Force didn't want anything to do with it because they were like, well, you're just a regular citizen. We're just going to try to sweep this under the rug. It happened in a foreign country. We're just going to forget that it happened. So I was kind of lost because I didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. Everybody that I knew was telling me, just move on with your life. This is like, I don't want to hear about it, that kind of thing. And so I started to lose myself. I started to go through the motions of, okay, what does everybody want me to do? They want me to audition for opera schools. They want me to go through the motions. They want me to see this dream through. But at that point, I was so fundamentally different and broken that I could not imagine a dream anymore for myself. I couldn't imagine traveling to like, you can't be an opera singer without traveling the world. I could not imagine getting on planes and trains and having to be alone on in hotels, and I just couldn't even imagine it. But I was trying to go through the motions and I was trying to pretend like everything was okay. And it took one of my voice teachers finally saying to me, "I don't know what is going on with you, but if you don't start getting therapy, you're just going to be out of like, do not come back to my studio unless you get help." And that probably saved my life because, sorry, I did not want my life anymore. I had gone down a very self-sabotage road, and at the risk of judgment, I'll just tell the truth. Like, I was, even though I was in an opera program, I started smoking cigarettes. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day sometimes. I was smoking weed. I was sleeping a lot. I was missing a lot of classes. And for somebody who in high school had been like president of the debate team, the longest running, drum major ever, the number one person in the Spanish team. Like, I was Little Miss Perfect, right? My sister and brother used to call me Miss Priss because I was pretty much like wanting to be the big number one achiever of the family. Like, I loved being in every club. I loved being active in everything. Um, you know, I was like do no wrong kind of person. I tried to be really straight laced, I guess. And then to go from that to finally, I just was like, okay, I give up. Like, I'm not even going to try anymore. I'm just going to sabotage everything. And that just led to a spiral of, I did finish my degree. And by the way, so many people say, "Can we hear you sing?" And I'm sure people will ask that. There are some recordings of my college or my Vanderbilt senior year recital. So I'll just play a little bit of that. And if I can find a photo of me from that day and age, I will put it on the screen just so you can hear it.
Quella fiamma che m'accende, piace tanto all'alma mia, piace tanto all'alma mia, che giammai s'estinguerà, s'estinguerà, s'estinguerà. Piace tanto all'alma mia, che giammai s'estinguerà, s'estinguerà, che giammai s'estinguerà, s'estinguerà.
Hopefully it picked that up, but I can put the recording in the description if any of you want to hear it. I definitely had a lot of nerves because that was my like senior recital. There were hundreds of people in the audience, and I was nervous. But uh, I used to have a talent. I really did have a talent, and it wasn't, my voice wasn't perfect, and I wasn't super confident, and I had things I still needed to learn. But if I had chosen a different path, if I had not had that happen to me, if life had not thrown some of those obstacles, I might have had a completely different life. But sometimes life grabs us and gives us a whole new, path, I guess. And so what do you do at that point if you're at a low or if you realize that you're living a life that is not what you intended? I basically went from that at 23 years old for the next 7 years of my life, getting deeper and deeper into negative spiral. So I graduated from graduate school at Butler, which was not a school that had a full stage opera career because I was in sabotage mode. But I did get my master's degree, so that was a win. I had some wins along the way. Uh, but I married someone who was very not good for me and turned more and more abusive. I got into a lot of debt. I went back to teaching job that I did not love. And I was in such a low place and in such denial about it that it literally took going through one house fire where I lost a lot of stuff. And then that same house, less than a year later, burning down again and losing everything I owned to get me to wake up. And in that second fire, I almost died. We had high ceilings. So there were maybe 17, 18-foot ceilings. It was an old antebellum sort of house in Georgia. And the fire marshal said that the fire had been going on in the attic for quite some time, and that if we had not had 17-foot ceilings, we probably would have never woken up because there would have been so much of that whatever carbon monoxide or whatever in the house that we would have just slept through the fire. But my ex-husband woke up because he heard a sound in the other room, which was basically the ceiling falling down. And he comes running in and he's like, Sarah, we got to go. And I like grab in my closet a jacket that I never wore, like a denim shirt that I almost never wore. Why didn't I grab my Prada shoes I bought in Europe or like my photos? I don't know. I grabbed the first thing I could and ran out of the house. And within 30 seconds of me getting out of that bed, the bed was on fire. Like the curtains, the ceiling came down and the curtains in the bed were on fire. And I literally was 30 seconds away from dying. And that was, I think, 2 years before my 30th birthday. And there was something about that process. And there's a lot of things in between that I'm like, how much do I even really talk about? Because there were just so many things happening in my life. The night of the first fire, I got a call from Japan saying the person who assaulted you has assaulted one of our officers and she's going to trial. Can you come and speak at her trial about what happened to you? And the military had all but forgotten me. And it was by the grace of God that a paralegal saw one note in this guy's um, record that said, other than the incident in Italy, he's been a great soldier. And she went looking for who was that incident in Italy, and it was me. And so we were under the statute of limitations of 5 years. And so they reinstated that case. And I was put on as a victim instead of just a witness. And he was convicted and he got sent to Fort Leavenworth for 8 years, which is not enough for assaulting two women. And he got out in less than that. He was actually released on my birthday, like 5 years later, of all things. But I I feel like that whole time in my life, the fires, the trial in that I had to go to Japan to be a part of, all the things that happened, just like a million tiny things that I can't even tell you because they're too personal. Um, just there was so much going on in my life. And if there was anything that could go wrong, it felt like it was going wrong in terms of, if I ran over a pothole, I'm going to lose two whole tires and my car is going to need $5,000 of repairs. Like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And I felt like I was in quicksand and I was just sinking deeper and deeper and deeper and trying so hard not to let anybody know. And I know that if you're watching this right now, you might be like, well, gosh, I don't relate to that at all. But there's probably some of you who, even if it's not that extreme, or it might be even more extreme than that, are thinking, I know what it feels like to be in a negative spiral. I know what it feels like to not be moving the direction I want to move. And in fact, feel like I'm moving backwards. And I'm just here to share this with you. Even though it's super personal, and even though I know I get criticism for it sometimes, I am sharing this with you because I know there's some of you out here watching it right now who know you're ready for change. And I just want you to know that change is possible for you, that you can move forward, and it might not be easy, but change is available for you. And there is a process by which you can design the life you want and begin to live that. The person that I was back in those years was so broken and lost that she would never have imagined. Like, if you just teleported her for a moment into this room right now and said, you wrote all these books, you have these beautiful children, look how happy you are, look at this dream house you get to live. Like, my life is not perfect, but dang, I am blessed. And that is not by accident. That's not just because somebody handed me this when I was a child. This is because I have created this. Every single day of my life, I have made choices that have created this, and I am no different from you. Well, I'm very different from you. We're all different. We're all unique, but there is nothing that I did that you can't figure out for yourself in your own way. And I just want to let you know that it's possible and to give you proof of that and to give you hope of that, whether your life just needs small tweaks or whether you were in that same place where you're like, man, everything has to change, right? I was coming up on my 30th birthday and I was living in an apartment that was furnished because my house was still burned. We were in a lawsuit. There were all these things happening. And I had this awakening of like, this is not the life I choose to live. I cannot be 30. I thought by 30, I would be a famous opera singer. I would be getting jobs and I would be like traveling the world. And instead, I am so stuck in quicksand. I cannot even see a way out of this. And I just felt myself like maybe I'm here in the quicksand. If I go any further, I'm never going to get out. And I hit this moment where I was like, place my flag, in the dirt and say, this is the moment, or draw the line in the sand and say, this is the moment. And I met George. I got divorced. I met George. I moved in with George, and George was kind of my like perfect person to come at that moment. For the first time in, 10 years, 7 years, starting to dream again about what was possible. And I knew opera was not really ever what I truly wanted. I had wanted theater, and it felt like it was kind of too late for that dream. I had just the thought of being in theater felt scary, and it felt like that dream was gone. So now I'm back to my childhood dream of being a writer. And George is the one who kind of, even though I didn't need permission, gave me permission. He was like, "What do you want to do with your life? And you can come stay with me, and we'll just follow your dreams." And I know not everybody gets that gift, but that is one of the greatest gifts of my life is my husband. And 15 years next month, or no, next week, 15 years next week. But we started dreaming together, and he became a sounding board of like, gosh, I could do this. Like, what if I wrote books? What if I saw my books in bookstores someday? What if I had fans? What if and every step along the way, it was what ifs and designing. So I think of that idea of designing your life process as kind of like building a puzzle. So, you know, imagine that you have this huge puzzle in front of you, but it's completely blank. And you get to decide, what do these pieces all look like? Like when it comes to my money and my income, what does that look like for me? And what you want is going to look very different from what I want. Maybe you want to be making $1 million a year. Maybe you want to be able to go and travel more. Maybe you want a bigger house. Maybe you just want enough money to not have to worry about anything. Like you've got a money piece, you've got a health piece, you've got a career piece that might be different, like the goals, the specific things you want to achieve. Maybe you want to be a writer. Maybe you want to start an Etsy shop. Maybe you want to start your own business selling something that you created. There could be any number of things that you want for your life. And then you start kind of painting this puzzle and designing it. But what you're really designing is your life. You're saying, okay, this is how I want this to look. And sometimes where that starts in terms of knowing what that design is the same place that I started at when I was 25, 30 years old, which is saying, I know what I don't want. I don't want everything going wrong every time. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be working a job I hate. I don't want to be in this place where I feel like I have no friends. So then started turning it on its head and saying, okay, I want close friends. I want a husband who actually loves me and is kind to me. I want to be happy. I want to walk more. I want to get my health in order. I want to stop smoking. And really, the day I turned 30, I filed for divorce, stopped smoking, a month later turned in my resignation at my job. Sometimes we just know this is not my life and we make massive changes. And sometimes we're sitting here and we're like, okay, I can't make massive changes right now, but I can start making subtle shifts that are going to make a big change for me over time. And the way I do that, the way I did that was really sit and think, what is it I want? And out of this like 5,000 piece puzzle, I only had maybe 100 pieces of it. I said, okay, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then I just started making sure that every project I took on, every dream I took on, everything I did when I woke up. Now, it's not as simple as just saying, well, I want to be fit and healthy. And then you wake up tomorrow and you start working out every day and eating the best food and taking the right supplements and having all the knowledge and discipline that you need to change your life. That doesn't really work like that. When you have the puzzle and you start to see it painted and you say, okay, this is what I want. Like when I decided, okay, I want to be a writer, it wasn't like I woke up the next day and suddenly was writing 2,000 words a day and finished a book in, 2 months or whatever. I had to stick to it. I had to figure out a way to make it work. And at first I struggled because I was like, I don't even know. I've been reading all my life and I don't even know how to put together a proper dialogue. None of this makes any sense. How do I plot? And it took time for me to find my process. It took time for me to develop a writing habit. And the way I did that was not writing books. The way I did that was I started a blog on Blogger way back in the day. And I just started blogging every day about like America's Next Top Model and the TV shows that I was watching and how hard it was to learn to be a writer. And it just got me into a groove, but it took some time. And I feel like in this day and age, we're all so anxious that when we decide we want our lives to change, we expect ourselves to change overnight. And then we wonder why we're not meeting our own expectations when those expectations were already so high. There was no way we were ever going to meet them in the first place. So, what I've learned to do is kind of a balance of looking forward, still filling in the pieces of my puzzle and saying, okay, now that I have this piece of it figured out, what's next? What's this next blank part? And then slowly but surely integrating that into my life. Now, I mentioned your path forward. I know not everybody's interested in taking courses, and I promise this is not just about take my course because hopefully you've gotten a lot of value out of this video, but I'll just kind of show you um, some of the things like the way that this works if this sparks something for you. So, one of the things that I am working on for your path forward, which is the class that starts tomorrow, is the idea of putting together your puzzle like a visual game board. So, if you were writing a book, what are the pieces that you want to have in place? And then placing them in an order like dominoes. So, go back and watch my video on how to change your life in 2025. I'll link it down below, where I talk about the domino effect. Like, we can't necessarily change everything or fix everything about our life in an instant, but what we can is do is we can decide what we want our lives to be, and then we can start lining up the actions we're going to take in the order we're going to do them. We can't do it all at once. We can't like start working out instantly, sleep 8 hours a day, drink 60 ounces of water, get a book deal, get an audio deal. Like, it's going to take time to finish the book, to start the business, to change your health habits. It takes time, it takes motivation, it takes energy, it takes dedication. But what we can do is we can start one place, right? So we might start with branding, and then you're going to start writing your book, then you're going to edit your book, then you're going to get a website together, then you're going to start working on your newsletter, then you're going to figure out how to market, then you're going to publish your next book. So you just lining things up like dominoes. And in the class, I'm really excited because I ran this class for the first time in January, but I've been using the system and tweaking it all year, and I'm excited to show more visually exactly what I mean by this domino thing. And I didn't have a template or something specific like this. You don't have to have that. What I did was I said, my puzzle, what do I want my life to be like? What do I need to change? And I just day by day, as hard as it was, I worked on getting over my trauma. I went to therapy. I mean, years and years of therapy. I did everything I could to build a support system around me. But all the while, I kept my eye on what is this future I'm trying to create. And piece by piece by piece, I have started putting that puzzle together by my design. And there's always going to be things like being assaulted in Europe was not part of my freaking design. If I could take that away from my past and heal myself even 20 years later, if I could get over that 100%, man, I would. I would be a different person though. And all I can do is be grateful for the life I have and be grateful for whatever that moment meant to this moment, you know? And sometimes we're going to be thrown for loops. Sometimes we're going to have things not go the way we wanted. And some of you are sitting in lives right now that is not the design that you would have chosen for yourself. We can't go back and change the past, but what we can do is sit here right now on the precipice of a brand new year and say, I want something different for myself. And not just say it, but believe it and know that you are worthy of something different for yourself, that you can create something different. You might not be able to do it the same way I am. I have my own gifts. You have your own gifts. You have your own dreams. You have your own limitations and responsibilities. We're all going to do it differently. But I truly believe that one path that can help a lot of people is just designing it the way you want it to be, deciding at least some pieces of what it is you want, and then figuring out a way like you've got that long-term piece and then figuring out a way over the next 3 months, January, February, March, to say, what pieces of that puzzle am I going to work on right now? And not to put so much on your plate that you can't do it. And then it feels unsustainable because that just continues building negative momentum, right? You want to build positive momentum. That means moving your targets closer, starting to see actual results, starting to do things that actually make you feel good. some people will say, "Oh, I gotta write 12 books a year in order to make the amount of money I wanna make," but it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel sustainable to them, and yet they keep doing it because they feel like they have to, and I'm telling you, there is always another way. There are ways to design your life the way you want. I wanna make $500,000 a year, but I only wanna write 2 books a year. You can do that. You might not be able to do it overnight, but you can design your life to be that way. You can diversify your income. You can try special editions. There's always things that you can try over time to build that income the way that you want, not the way somebody else says you have to do it. And you not only deserve that, but you are capable of that. It might not look the same as me because we're all on our own path, but deciding what it is that you don't want anymore and what you do want, and setting it out like dominoes that you're going to knock over. Okay, I'm going to take care of my health first, knock that domino over. I'm going to get my health together. I'm going to quit this job. I'm going to write my first book. I'm going to finish this book this year. I've been working on this and saying I was going to do it for years. Like for me, I've been saying for years, I'm going to get my health together. And now, as I'm sitting here 2 years from 50, I lost a very dear friend of mine this week. So I have been overly emotional, but we aren't guaranteed anything. And I'm tired of wasting my time, and I don't want to live in fear of death, but at the same time, I don't want to live a life that is less than what I deserve, and the only person who has the power to really change that is me, and I've done it before, and I have built a ladder to this particular place where I am now, and I'm ready to put a new ladder up, put a new puzzle in place. I'm mixing metaphors, but I'm ready to decide exactly what is the next step for me, and then I'm ready to put into place my dominoes that say, this is where I'm going to start. I'm not going to try to do it all at once because it's not kind to myself and it's not sustainable. But I'm going to start with this one piece of it. And then I'm going to move to the next one. And then I'm going to move to the next one. And I'm going to support myself the whole way. In the class, one of the things that I'm adding to your path forward is not only these templates, there's going to be a Notion template, a Google Sheets template, there's going to be checklists. I'm also adding an entire section about how to follow through and think ways that you can gamify and ways that you can kind of trick your mind, rewards, milestones, lots of stuff like that. And I think it's going to be really fun. So if you want to come join us, we start tomorrow. If you're watching this as the video goes live, the course is also going to stay open evergreen. So you'll miss the live streams, but they'll be recorded for you. So you'll get the same experience. It won't be live, but this course will stay open, unlike most of my other courses. HB90, on the other hand, closes on Saturday. You can grab both of these classes in the New Year bundle for $50 off. Or if you've already taken one of the classes, you can email me and I will send you a coupon to get some money off of, like $50 off the other course. Or you can just sign up for one or the other individually. And again, I hope that you'll come join me because you'll be learning from somebody who truly cares about your path forward, like truly cares, and someone who has been at the lowest of the low points in my life and managed to bring myself from that to a place where I've sold over 1 million books. I've sold over $2 million worth of courses. I have published 30 novels. I am living in my dream house after years of infertility. I have 2 beautiful, healthy children, and there's so much about my life that I love. It's not perfect. I'm not perfect, and I never will be. I don't set that expectation for myself, but I have been at a place where I felt like I was going under and would never find myself again. And I have managed to pull myself up and find a life for myself, and you deserve the same. And I can at least show you how I did it for myself and walk you through a process of how to do it for yourself. And if a course is not right for you right now, it'll be here when you need it. Or I have many other videos here on YouTube that can help you start making your plan for the new year. And there's also, of course, the planners up on Etsy if you want to go purchase them there. But if this video resonated, I hope that you'll subscribe either way, because subscribing is totally free and it helps out. And we talk about lots of different things here on this channel, but this is definitely one of them. And yeah, I didn't drink a lot of my tea along the way, so I'm going to go drink my tea and I'm going to go keep working on getting everything ready for your path forward. Thank you for letting this be a place where I am safe to talk about my own story. And I hope that it continues to resonate with you. Truly, this is a powerful time to sit down over these next couple of weeks, whether you do it in my course or not. Just come sit down at the table and say, Where have I been? What have I accomplished? Celebrate your wins and then say, but what do I want to be different? And instead of expecting yourself to just transform overnight and just get it all done and feeling that impatience of, I got to do it all as fast as possible, take it one domino at a time and start to see the momentum completely transform your life and turn it into what you designed for yourself. All right. I love you guys. That's it for now. I will see you in my next video. I love you. Bye.